Armchair commanders, we call the shots. From our living room thrones where the action's hot. We're the generals of fiction, the masters of war. In silver screen battles with buttered popcorn. Armchair commanders, armchair commanders.
Alrighty, welcome to the Armchair Commanders podcast. My name is John.
And I'm Jack.
And this week we are fortunate enough to have Tim Nesmith joining us again. Tim, if you'd like to say hi and tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me back, guys. My name is Tim Nesmith, and I am the Ship Superintendent and Education Outreach Coordinator for the USS Kidd Veterans Museum in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
As our listeners who have been with us for a while might recall, Tim joined us to do the review of Greyhound, which the ship that he works for was the set piece for. So
we prefer the term lead actress.
The lead. That's a good way of putting it.
Of course,
yeah,
of course.
She is the star of the show.
She is.
And this might be shocking to our listeners today who came specifically just to listen to Tim, but we're not talking about boats.
Not this time.
So, Tim, we are reviewing The Dam Busters from 1955. Why this movie?
I have run across this movie multiple times since college when I was attending LSU, and I've never seen it. I've only seen snippets and I've heard stories about it. The snippets that I saw when I watched Pink Floyd's The Wall, the movie, and the character Pink is going through his mental breakdown and sitting in a dark room watching a TV. And you see screenshots and little snippets of footage of the Dam Busters on all throughout that movie, and it intrigued me. And then later, of course, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I am watching Industrial Light and Magic's behind-the-scenes stuff on the movies themselves, on the DVDs. And then recently, again, with their 50th anniversary special they did on Disney Plus, and they really went into detail about how the very first Star Wars movie in 1977, the Death Star trench run was based off of scenes from the Dam Busters. So it's crossed my path all these years, and I never have been able to find a copy of it. And I finally found a copy last year, back in the spring, right before we took the kid to dry dock. And I was like, okay, once it gets in dry dock, I'm going to have like a week off because I'm just exhausted, and I'll get to sit down and watch it. And then I still haven't been able to watch it until you guys reached out and, asked me if I wanted to come back, and if so, what I would like to watch. And I'm like, Dam Busters. That way I'll finally get this thing done with and over with. I want to watch this film.
Force you to watch it?
It kicked me in the butt. And I literally, last night, I had something come up and it got in the way. And I literally got up this morning, and at 9 a.m. I put it into the Blu-ray player and started watching it. And I finished up about an hour and a half ago. About an hour and a half ago. So it's a love-hate relationship with this movie, but I got it done.
I started it last night, but it was one of those just like, you have a long day and you're like, oh, I can finally relax and just watch a movie. And like 20 minutes in, because there's a little bit of a slow start to this film, and just 20 minutes of watching this dude skip rocks across a pond. I fell asleep.
It's science.
Science, damn it.
Also, I watched this. Well, excuse me. Last night was kind of a late night for me. Playing video games with the homies. And I was about to go to bed at 1:30. Then I remembered, oh shit, I got to watch a movie for the podcast tomorrow. And I checked the time. I'm like, okay, we're recording it around 1 p.m. I got time. So then I binged it in one sitting from 1:30 to 3:30ish. I was invested, man.
No, it's once it like gets going, it keeps your attention.
It does. It does. It's definitely a British made movie though. You can I don't know. I felt like I could tell the difference between it being British made and it being a Hollywood movie, even for Hollywood of that time. There's definite differences.
Yeah, the storytelling was a lot more like A B C D, just very and then and then and then. It doesn't take much of a like an artistic approach to it, which
Right.
I'm not knocking it for that, but this is definitely much more story driven.
Yeah, a linear story straight through. No skipping back, no flashbacks, nothing like that.
Um, I did find it. I was so confused though because, like I said, I made it like 20 minutes into it last night and I fell asleep and then I woke up this morning and restarted it. But I woke up and Jack was like, I forgot what he sent me in a text, but uh, he's like, I was not ready for that dog's name.
And yeah, I can't seem to wait, hold up. I can't seem to remember what the dog was named. Tim, what was it named?
Am I allowed to say it?
No.
Should I say it?
No,
No,
you're not.
absolutely
No, I'm
not.
not allowed to say it. Okay. It's a derogatory term from olden days.
Oh my god.
It's a fucking doozy.
We
Like
have, we have a recurring joke here. It's like we have a racist elephant to address in the room. Like it's bad enough that there's an elephant, but it's also racist.
Yes.
Like,
makes it even harder to ignore.
oh god.
I don't know where you guys watched this, but I watched it off of YouTube. And
I did the same thing.
Yeah,
I spent the $4 on YouTube.
Same. There is a disclaimer at the beginning. I was like, this movie was made at like in a certain time and it contains language that people would find offensive. And I was just like, okay, so probably one character says the Japs or something like that. Nope. And like
So
I that's the same name that H.P. Lovecraft had for his cat, and apparently it was a common name back then, but still.
Yeah.
I was talking to my wife about this. So her dad it was actually originally from England. Her grandmother still lives there. And so I was talking to her about this. I was like, this is a really good movie, but there's just one really problematic part of it. And I was telling her about it. And she's like, I was like, I have no doubt that the original Squadron Commander's dog was named that, which it was.
Yeah.
But I was like, even in the 1950s, you'd have to think like, at least in America by the 1950s, the N-word, although in common usage, was still known to be like you are using it in a hateful or spiteful manner. Like, at least that's how it was for us. But she told me a story about how her grandmother, who, as like a kid in the 60s and 70s, like, the old like kids rhyme like eeny meeny miny mo, catch a tiger by a toe.
Yeah.
Her grandmother would say catch N-word by the toe.
My dad still says that.
Okay, well, your dad has an issue, but you're going to have to chat with him about that. But I started looking into it, and like in England, the N-word did not have nearly the same connotation as it did in America at that time.
Because there wasn't as many black people, is that what you're saying?
That, and they didn't have Jim Crow going on. So, I mean, not that there,
Integration happened much faster than it did here in America.
yeah, not that there wasn't racism in England in the 40s and 50s, but it was a vastly different experience than what America was having.
Right.
So it was there were people in that time frame that could see it as not the best word, but like the way that she was explaining it to me was basically is like the way that people in England in the 40s and 50s saw the N word is the way we see the, and this is my own personal choice. I don't know about you individuals, but uh, the word retard, I don't use it in my own vernacular. I refer to it as the R word. Um, Basically, the N word is in 40s and 50s England is similar to the way we view the R word today, which is some people are like me are adamantly opposed to using it um, outside of explaining it. Like I don't use it in any kind of normal sentence. Like the only time I say that word is just to elucidate that that's what word I'm talking about. Um, but there's also plenty of people today that are like, whatever, you know, it's like today people see the R word as like, yeah, it can be a bad word, but it's not generally agreed upon, you know? So it's not defending the usage of this. It's just, it's something that did not age well with this film.
Right. And language changes over time. Like you're saying the R word, nowadays is not accepted. And when I graduated high school and was starting college, I worked at a school for the mentally challenged, mentally handicapped, whatever the proper terminology is nowadays. But back then it was a school for the mentally R word. And it was a medical description. The brain hadn't developed the same way everybody else's had. So
Yeah.
we become more aware. Some people take it and appropriate it and use it for nastiness, and then
Yeah.
it becomes
That being said,
yeah.
the N word has never been used medically.
No,
So
no. In this instance, no. That no, no. All the way around, no.
and I think the thing that's so jarring about it is that I don't know. We've talked about this in other films that we've reviewed. Like we did Devotion a month or two ago, which
Okay.
is about Korean War fighter pilots, and it's the dynamic between the Navy's first black fighter pilot um, in this conflict. And one of the things we talked about was like the absolute like how does a film about 1950s America and military culture not use the N word ever? Um, and it's one of those. There are places I do expect the usage of the word. Not saying it's an okay. Like obviously, it's not an okay word,
Right.
but there are places I expect it, and when it was jarring when it wasn't there. This was very much the same place where I wasn't expecting it, not because of the time frame, but because of the fact that it was literally just the name of a dog.
Right.
Like it was like if they were going to be like, oh, we're going to be dickheads to other individuals, that tracks for the time frame. But
Right.
I don't know.
It is jarring. I have a friend who went. You know how the movie theaters now are showing classic films like on Sundays or something, one special showing a month or something.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I went to they were doing like a 30th anniversary screening of Glory.
Of what?
Of Glory.
Glory. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So I go to those every now and again.
Yeah. My friend went to see Mel Brooks. Gene Wilder was in it. It just slipped. Blazing
Oh,
Saddles.
Yeah, Blazing Saddles. I saw they were doing that this year because it was
And I mean,
the
he and I
50th, I think.
grew up with this movie. You know, we watched it. I first watched it on NBC, massively edited, and then later see it and just rolled with laughter with it and everything. And he went to see it in this setting now, just like a couple of years ago. And when he told me about it, I'm like, oh, I said, how? I said, did they edit it? Did they dub it? He's like, no, they played it just like just like it was originally made. I said, how was it? He said, I have never been more uncomfortable in a theater before. He said, everybody is laughing, and then the word is uttered, and everybody freezes. Everybody gets quiet. And then gradually they start laughing again as comedy ensues. And then the word comes, and everybody gets quiet. He said it was very surreal and uncomfortable. So, and this explains why Peter Jackson has been talking about remaking Dam Busters, making a new modern version of it to
I
bring the
would
story
I
to
would
modern
love that.
audiences. What's that?
I said I would love that because
Yeah.
this
Tom Holland is Bomber Harris. Sorry,
Tom
Chris
Holland is
Pratt.
Bomber Harris.
Chris Pratt.
I think Tom Holland is a few years too young for that spot, but
That's what everybody said about him as Nathan Drake, and look what. Okay, he ruined it, but still.
maybe we could get Benedict Cumberbatch to be Bomber Harris.
There you go. Tom Hardy is a little too old now, so we got to let Tom Hardy go for that sort of role. I love Tom Hardy. But he's
Well,
a
I was
little
going to say he already had his chance to play a RAF pilot. He can move up the ladder.
Yeah, I mean he kept that, what was it, a Spitfire? He kept that Spitfire in the air with no engine running, just gliding for 16, 18 hours,
Yeah. I bet Tom Hardy could play Barnes Wallace pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think that is part of the movie I really, really enjoy. Barnes Wallace in this film, he is the creator of the bouncing bomb. Fun fact, he would also go on to create the Tall Boy and the Grand Slam bombs. Which I find hilarious because they kind of briefly mention it. They don't make it as big of a deal as it really was, but he was, I don't know if this was his exact title, but essentially his position was he was like vice president of the Vickers Corporation, like one of the largest aircraft manufacturers in England. And so him quitting that position to do shenanigans with these weird bombs is like, it's literally as if it, say if like Henry Ford is like, I'm not making cars anymore, I'm going to go skip rocks at the pond now. Like, that's how insane that would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But during that entire arc, because he takes up a good chunk of about the first half hour, and then he kind of pops up intermediately throughout the rest of the film. I really liked, even though I said it was slow, I liked that first half hour because it reminded me a lot of kind of like the vibe of the film, The Imitation Game. Because because the whole point of The Imitation Game is, and that's on our list too, but it's Alan Turing, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, and his scientists are developing a computer to break the Enigma code.
Right.
And that's very much kind of the vibe I got from the beginning of this film, is you have a very smart guy who is misunderstood trying to solve a very specific problem. And I just found it interesting. So, I mean, heck, I think you could even do a movie that's just about Barnes Wallace, but I'm not sure what the turnout would be for that film. But
Yeah.
not as much pull of a name there as
I hate dams.
What? What?
I
I
hate
hate
dams.
I hate
dams.
dams.
No,
Yeah,
you want to talk
I like
about like a single word movie title? Just put "damn!" exclamation point.
I like the way Michael Redgrave played him though, because when you first see him, he's out with the kids. It looks like they're playing a game, but then the other guy, the minister visits, or the doctor rather visits, and he's talking to the wife, and through that conversation you realize, wait, he's obsessed with this idea. He can't get it out of his mind, and he's roped the kids into it, and he's spending all hours of the night, and he's running himself ragged on this idea. So then you're like, is he obsessed? Is he gonna destroy his marriage? Is he gonna destroy his career? So I mean, that was an interesting take on it, and I wonder how close to reality it really was, for his part of the story.
I'm sure there's probably a little bit of a tortured genius thing going on there.
And then, ironically, he's a bomb builder and bomb designer, and he is excessively worried about his idea for this mission ending with the loss of British lives in the aircraft crews. He's very concerned and tortured about that. So there's an interesting irony there, because a lot of weapons builders, you see that, you know a total disconnect from the fact that this kills people, and yet
Right.
he has made that connection, and he's able to continue with it and with that knowledge. So I thought that was an interesting character choice.
I I really do hope that Peter Jackson does make a remake of this film, because I think it would do very well today. Um, I think it would be very hard, or it'd be very difficult, because I think one of the things that makes this film so great is the fact that it's only 10 years after the war ends, and so there's an abundance of aircraft for them to use. Very few scenes in this film are using models. Like, it's only when a plane blows up that they're using a model.
Right.
Um, but that's the thing that makes this film so great, is that there's so many of these amazing aerial shots of these bombers flying in formation, flying 100 feet off the ground. It's like you can recognize how impressive the flying ability is for this mission and what these guys are doing. And it's also just beautiful shots of these planes going through the air. And, today, I think there's only like one or two airworthy Lancasters anymore.
Right.
And something tells me that people who own those airplanes might have a bit of an issue having them in a film, given Hollywood's predilection for destroying historic shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And to echo that, I read a little bit while I was waiting, while we had technical difficulties. They had four Lancasters, and all four of those are gone now. But if I jotted some notes down while I was watching, if you get if you pay particular attention to some of the close-ups of them looking through the cockpit windows and the cameras outside, you can see weathering on the plane. You can tell it's not a mock-up, because back then with the older movies, everything, usually, except for the Kane Mutiny that I've noticed, everything usually is pristine and everything. And I could see paint chipping off of some of the linings around the cockpit windows, and inside you could see some stuff that had been banged up. Those bombers had been used and were being used when they made these films, or this film. So that just, to me, added even more realism to it, which nowadays most set designers really try to give it an aged look like that, a lived in look. So
This is also one of those films that exists in a very narrow and special window of the film is made in close enough proximity that to the actual event that they can use like wartime footage and get away with it most of the time. I like the best example or like the most prevalent example of this would be like Sands of Iwo Jima, where half of that film is just combat footage that they've repurposed. Um, and I found it. I really like the fact that they did have wartime footage in this, like when it came to showing them testing the bombs or the bomb drop scenes. They were obviously using wartime footage, but other than that, everything else was very obviously like, no, we filmed it specifically for this film.
Right.
So I liked that there's an obvious effort on their part to show this story.
Yeah, I agree. At first, I was like, wait, did when they dropped the first bomb in the test, I'm like, it looked like a little black CGI blip that they had superimposed over something. And I did a little research on that, and it's actually not a Lancaster dropping the bomb. It's a Mosquito that they had used in testing. So that's test footage that we're watching there from doing the test, preparing for the mission. And I think I read that they kind of played with each frame of the film a little bit to disguise the bomb a little bit because it was still classified.
Hmm.
So that was interesting too. A little bit of censorship, post-war censorship, but Cold War censorship, because we might need this again.
Hey, this film was made shortly after Korea. Who knows? Maybe we had a Korean dam we needed to blow up.
Well, there is a situation in Korea, but it was U.S. Torpedo planes that did it. They blew up a dam somewhere in Korea. I don't think it was the Chosun Reservoir; it was somewhere else. But
That is the other thing I did like about this film because it does take a moment to discuss why all these other alternatives would not work. Is
yes,
oh, we can't use torpedoes because the Germans have put up torpedo nets. Also, we can't bomb it from the top because it's like 150 feet of pure concrete and that just won't work, you know?
and the
Um,
water that Jack mentioned earlier, science. The water in the dam. If you just drop a bomb near the dam, 50 or 100 feet away, the water acts as a cushion. So you need the bomb close to the dam so that the water on the away from it kind of cushions and pushes all the force back toward the dam. That was really interesting to me, just the science aspect of it. I was glad they explained that.
it was a science heavy movie, but it also wasn't like so technical that you didn't get lost.
Hmm.
And I think that's the other part of the science aspect that was so good was like, you know, Barnes Wallace in this movie, like he keeps everything really close to his chest, but we still see him doing everything. So like we as viewers are seeing, like we know what the end product is going to be going into the movie, and we see him designing it, and only after we've seen all the tests and the design procedures and then he explains what he did and why it works, I think was a terrific choice as far as like a film goer.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree
Because
with
if you just threw, because like if this movie was just like, if it was just the combat mission and like our first scene is just like him making this pitch to bomber command is like, I created a bouncing bomb that will blow up right at the base of the dam, and it's like, okay.
that can't be real.
Yeah, it's like cool, I don't see why that's necessary, but
Yeah. Yeah, and also explaining the importance of the dams for the
Mhm.
Germans. That was,
Steel
it's not
production is
just
power.
what's that?
Steel production and electricity.
Yeah, I mean, they even went so far as how much steel, how long will it take you, and how much effort will it take for the Germans to produce this amount of steel? Oh, it takes a week, and it's because of this and this. Oh, and the dams also provide power, etc. So rather than this is just a big bad weapon, we got to blow it up.
Plus, all your clothes are going to get wet. Like, I wouldn't want to go to war if my
Yeah, make them all soggy. It'll cause a rash if they don't dry out.
they flooded my tomato garden. Those bastards.
Yeah.
No sauerkraut for anybody.
Yeah.
Sauerkraut's the backbone of the German army in 43.
Yeah, now this shit's personal.
Mine cabbages. So, Jack, what was your favorite aspect of this film?
Man, it's wild to me that Wallace watched Star Wars and he's like, what if this works in real life? But instead of proton torpedoes, we use bouncing bombs.
Hey,
I'm kidding, of course, but the dam run they do inspired the trench run in Star Wars.
Yeah. Now I'm curious. I didn't even look up this aspect. Were Wallace and Gibson around by the time Star Wars came out, or had they already passed?
I think
Let
Wallace
me
was already
look.
dead at this point.
Okay.
No, Wallace died in October 30, 79. So
Just enough.
he would have had the opportunity to see the film. I don't know if he actually went, but because
Bomber Harris died in '84, so
Okay.
he definitely would have seen it.
who knows? Maybe they weren't like moviegoers.
But it had Alec Guinness.
Oh, that's
Yeah, the
right.
famed Shakespearean
Cushing.
actor.
Peter Cushing.
Oh yeah, totally. But you think he was just watching that movie in the theater, and then gets to the trench run scene. He's like, "Wait a minute."
Why am I not getting a royalty check?
Exactly.
I came up with the plan to destroy the Death Star.
Whether it's, historical Nazis or space Nazis, he had beef, okay?
Yeah,
Look
man.
at the way Cushing was dressed, jack boots and trousers.
Maybe he went to Star Wars and just had some serious flashbacks.
Yeah.
Before you continue, did you see that video of a Dunkirk veteran going to Dunkirk a couple years ago?
No, I didn't. That must have been a kind of a chance encounter, really, because there's hardly any World War II vets left. So,
man, he came out of that theater looking rough.
I would imagine. I watched Saving Private Ryan when it first came out in the theater. There were several veterans in the audience, and one was sitting right behind me. And when the movie ended, I got up and checked to make sure I had my keys in my wallet; they hadn't slipped out or something. And just glanced up, and he's sitting there, and he's just watching the credits rolling and everything. He's not emotional. He's poker face. He's just sitting there watching it. But his wife was looking at him, and her face was just ashen, and her jaw was just agape. Like, oh my God, you went through something like that. I don't know if he was a D-Day vet or if he, was on the Pacific side in those invasions, but obviously he saw action, and it blew her away that he might have seen something like that.
Christ.
I'm not sure which is better, to have something that's super real like that kind of throws that in your face, or to have the opposite end of the spectrum of, did you hear about what the World War II, there were Doolittle Raiders who went and saw Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor, and they fucking walked out
Oh, ouch.
because they were pissed.
I know some Pearl Harbor vets who were pissed at that movie.
Looks like World War II just started. Fuck off.
Oh, it's World War III now that you pissed off the World War II guys.
Spielberg was telling a story in that ILM anniversary issue, where he had started work on 1941 on the script, and he was getting the production together and everything. And Brian De Palma came up to him and he's like, "Steven, I hear you're doing a war movie." He's like, "Oh, it's a comedy." And he started telling him about it. And De Palma was like, "Steven, you must stop. You can't make this film." And he's like, "What are you talking about? It's a comedy. It's hilarious." And he's like, "Steven, you don't joke about World War II." And this is what, late 1970s or early 1980s. And
The only guy that can do that is go.
"You don't joke about this. This will ruin your career." And it's one of Spielberg's few flops. he wasn't wrong at that point in time, at least.
I think the only person that can get away with that is Gomer Pyle.
Yeah. Yeah. But Gomer wasn't in World War II.
Was he post World War II?
Yeah, he was Cold War.
Oh, then it didn't even matter for him.
It didn't matter. he wasn't even in combat.
I would argue Mel Brooks.
So,
But
Which
I don't
Brooks
think
movie?
no,
that's what I was
as
gonna
far as
say.
somebody who could get away with it.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
probably the only one that
Ends
could.
history of the world with we're Jews in space, we're blah blah blah.
But I mean,
But
he has that kind of comedy that seems to kind of just skate by everything.
and he was there. He was he's a World War II veteran.
Yeah, he was a combat engineer. He did minesweeping.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was there when they liberated the camps, and he could speak to the survivors in Yiddish.
Wow.
He actually did a kind of a smaller skit in History of the World Part 2. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that, but
Part 2? No,
yeah.
I haven't seen Part 2 yet.
It's on Hulu. They did it as a series. I don't know how much creative input he had with that. I think it was he, gave his blessing to use the name and the brand.
Okay.
And he was there for the intro, but it was very heavily driven. At least it seemed it was heavily driven by today's comedy actors and writers.
Okay.
But he does do a skit in History of the World Part 2 where they make fun of the puking on the Higgins boats for the D-Day landing.
Okay.
So there's potential there, but
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you can do comedy about World War II and I can see why Spielberg felt that he could do it because you have the classic Hogan's Heroes, you have McHale's Navy. It just, I don't know. It has to be done a certain way, I guess. And then of course you've got Hearts War. So with Bruce Willis, which was not intended to be a comedy.
I was going to say, I don't remember that being very funny.
Well, it was funny to us for the guy that conned us into going, and he's like, I feel like I owe you guys an apology and a refund.
That's another film that's on our list that we have yet to do.
Really?
Well, that's the thing is we have there's 100 some films on our list, and every time we take one off, we add 3 or 4 more. So,
well, I've got a guy. He's not in museums or anything. I've got a guy that I will give you his contact information if you want to make him sit through Hearts War again. I think he owes it to me for making me sit through it.
Absolutely.
By the way, I want to ask a question, and I don't know if either of you would have caught it, but I'm going to take a shot. There's a fight scene in the Dam Busters where the other squadrons are giving these guys crap because all they're doing is flying around the country and making fake bombing runs and basically sitting around the rest of the time. They're not going into combat. And they had a nickname for them. And so this Gibson basically said, next time they take we're leaving on so and so date. Next time they take a shot at you, take them out. And so they all do. They basically have a barracks brawl because they called them this name. Do you remember what the name was for their squadron? The nickname?
No, I
No?
don't. I
Jack?
do recall seeing during the middle of that fight scene just like one guy coming out like they had totally torn his clothes off of him and like they like dragged him back into a room by his suspenders.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I found that very hilarious.
yeah. Jack, did you catch the name?
Dorks, right?
Dorks? No, it
I have
wasn't
no
Dorks.
idea.
I swear that it was Armchair Commanders
Oh
because
yeah, that's
they're
right.
Am I right?
Yeah, they did say that at one point in the movie. Now I remember.
Yeah,
You know
'cause
what?
they come
That
in
is
before the fight
that
starts.
is why
they're all
we named
lounge chairs and armchairs.
that is why we named our podcast that,
There you
because
go.
of the
Yeah,
specific
when I
movie
saw that, I'm
reference.
like, oh, I gotta double check that, and I didn't have time to go back and look at it. But I was like, oh, armchair. What did he say?
You think we can
My
see?
DVD did not, or my Blu-ray did not have the option for putting on closed captioning, and so the British accent sometimes just threw me. I'd have to rewind.
You think we can
I'm
sue?
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that I missed a direct reference to our podcast name in a
Yeah,
movie.
fuck you, John.
From 1955,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Time Travelers.
it's weird how they knew about us.
that sounds like a fucking t-shirt idea right there. We could get like a Sofa King with like a old school movie projector thing design with like a Lancaster flying over.
Or have the image from behind you in the armchair watching the Lancaster flying on the TV with the dog.
There's
And
oh
yeah,
god.
that's how I came to this movie. That's the scenes that I would see in Pink Floyd.
I don't think we can add the dog. I'm sorry.
You can just rename him with the D instead of the N, which is what they're actually talking about with Jackson's film, and people are just having a fit about it. But
Oh, Lottie fucking da.
I know,
Like
right? I would name
movies
it Red.
movies take creative licenses all the time. If Peter Jackson did a shot for shot remake of this film and
It'd be
all he did was change the name of the dog,
Mhm.
I would be ecstatic.
Yes, 100%. I really hope that they get to go forward with it. It would be great to see with modern effects and everything. But then again, the modern effects might take away from what you and I were talking about with the actually seeing Lancaster bombers flying and the actual wartime footage. So
You know what? I think it'd be very funny if you just changed the dog's name to just literally N word.
or Peter.
Peter.
That he likes to be in the movies. He can be the dog.
He doesn't even get a dog. He just puts on like a dog ears himself.
Woof. But
Like
Woof, woof.
John Candy from Spaceballs.
Yeah.
But on the note of the special effects, I did appreciate that some of the explosions you could obviously tell were like stock footage of roaring rapids played over an explosion shaped frame.
Yes.
Genius.
Yeah. When
I
it was
should-
like when it was zoomed out, like you could still tell it's a very shitty special effect. But it wasn't until they did like a close up when the dam blew up and then it started like coming apart that you're like, oh, this isn't even a superimposed like flame. This is, like you said, it's roaring rapids within a explosion shaped cutout on the cell.
I really shouldn't laugh because I'm pretty sure that blew their fucking minds in 1955.
Here's the thing. They obviously built a model for the damn breaking scene.
Yeah.
You're telling me you couldn't find one guy from the army to bring a little, little boom, like real boom stuff to blow up your model?
I think it would have been funny as hell if they just reenacted the bombing on Germany just to send the message that we ain't sorry and we'll do it again.
Don't do this again.
Yeah,
I
try and stop us.
I think we were still rebuilding Europe at that point. We probably could have got away with it.
Well, the dam got repaired fairly quickly, so we can do it again just to fuck with them.
Well, one dam got repaired. The other two were like completely destroyed. But
wait, I thought we only got 2 of the 3 targets. Which
there was only they got 2/3 of the target.
Which, to quote Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever quoted Meatloaf on this show before, but I'm glad that we did it before the 100 episode mark. Good job, Jack.
Yeah, because as far as quoting Meatloaf, I would do anything for you guys, but I won't do that. Now you got 2.
Two in one episode. That's shit. We're going to have to start a Patreon and make this an exclusive.
Man. Go us.
Something that was a little off-putting to me, like, and I know it's 1950s, and special effects aren't top tier, but it's definitely struck me as like we see other films from this time frame that can kind of accurately do these other special effects. So it was kind of a letdown. It almost felt like all of their budget went into these airplanes, which totally, like, I love the airplane scenes. I think that is the biggest selling point for this film.
Right.
But it's like, oh, we dumped all the money into these airplanes. Let's just paint dots onto the cell frames for, anti-aircraft fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those 2 instances of special effects were a bit off, especially considering when we transition from the real airplanes to, you can kind of see the jump cut where it goes from a real airplane to a model, and then they blow up this model like in the middle of the sky. Like, I think that's another thing Star Wars stole from this film. That Lancaster bomber blew up like it was a flippin' TIE fighter. Just
right.
Just nothing left.
Right. But talking about that transition, you see the same thing in Run Silent, Run Deep 2 years later. You'll see the destroyer going along, and it's an actual destroyer. And then a moment later, she takes a torpedo and blows up, and it's a model, and it's very obviously a model. There's no effort to hide that it's a model. So right. I don't know. It may be a budget thing. It may have just been the way you did things back then.
That being said, the attack scene was fantastic, I think. I'm not sure if it was really necessary for them to have the 3 misses and then it blows up thing. Like, I get there was a tension building aspect to that, but it kind of made that scene drag on a bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. They could have trimmed it down, or they could have, I don't know, gone back and forth a little bit more, maybe heard one of them over the radio while they're having a discussion about something else as they're circling. I don't know. But right. Yeah, it did drag a little bit.
I think the combat aside and like the scientific part aside, there are parts of this film I said at the very beginning that this isn't a very, it's not a very artistic film, or that's not really its goal. But there are still moments that it manages to do artistic or very symbolic type scenes. I think the one that hit me very well is like, you know, during the combat runs, we see Lancaster bombers blow up, all that. Like, obviously, that should register with us that, you know, air crews are gone. Um, but I think it's easy in a airplane focused movie, or even in a like a boat focused movie. Like, you see an airplane blow up, or you see a ship blow up, that, yeah, there's an aspect in your brain that there are people on there and they're gone. But it's really like they really drive the point home at the end of the film, where they have the comparison of pre-mission, everybody is sitting down at tables having breakfast, and then the mission happens, and then the next scene is they are having their dinner after the mission, and half of the tables are empty,
I like
and
that. Yeah.
they slow pan across the tables that have place settings but no people at them. And I thought that was a very excellent and very like good artistic choice to drive that point home.
And they go before mission, you see what the guys are doing in each of their rooms, and they're sharing, most of them are sharing rooms with each other. And like one guy writes a letter, seals it up, leans it up against his lamp or his photo frame or whatever, and just various pre-mission things. And then at the end, they go back to the rooms of the guys. Like two of them survive. The Aussie guy and his roommate survive, and they literally go to the beds and collapse into the beds without changing out of their grimy uniforms, which I've done before after overnights on the kid. But it seemed like combat, but it wasn't. Me taking down Cub Scouts. But the other one,
Just punting them across the deck, or
dude, whatever it took to survive sometimes. Um, but the ones that didn't, the air crews that didn't make it back, you see just the room. And the artistic choice that I liked about that right then was no music. There was absolutely no score going on. It was just silence, which really I thought emphasized the missing servicemen, the missing airmen. They weren't there. They're not coming back.
I think the other part of it too is going back to our racist dog name. Um, you know,
Rufus?
yeah, Rufus. For the purpose of our podcast, his name is Rufus now. Um, they're in the mission briefing, and Rufus gets hit by a car and dies. Which, come on, who doesn't get a little teary eyed when a dog dies in a movie? I mean,
when it has a Klansman's name. It's one thing to name him that, but to also give him the little hood and
oh god,
Klan robes.
So Rufus dying, I was like, I had to Google it, because I was like, I'm not remembering this wrong, am I? Because as soon as Rufus dies, I'm like, and they had it occur during the mission briefing. I'm like, oh, everybody's going to die in this mission. And like, even though I know this story, I still pulled out my phone and Googled. I'm like, damn, Buster's success ? Like, because when something like that happens in a film, you're like, yep, everybody's going to die now.
Yeah.
But it was an aspect of the story. But I could definitely see if like you didn't know anything about the film, you'd be like, huh, they did it despite the dog dying.
Right. And I had been a little familiar with it before, for reading up on it, before I finally got the Blu-ray and was able to watch it today. I was a little surprised at how underplayed the death was in the movie, because the dog actually died not the day of the mission, like right before they're flying out, but the day before, and they hid it from the squadron because he was the mascot, not just the flight commander's, the squadron commander's dog, but the squadron's mascot. So I was a little surprised that Gibson didn't react other than to say, "Hey, I want you to bury him at this certain time at this location." He didn't get teary eyed. You know, none of the other squadron members reacted. It's kind of like, wait a minute, this dog has a whole big arc in this show.
Oh yeah, because everybody loves Rufus.
Yeah, everybody loves Rufus, but nobody reacted to his death other than, "Sorry, sir. I know he was special." You know, stiff upper lip. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was the British stiff upper lip that kept them from reacting.
Stiff upper lip and let me throw his leash away angrily. That's our only.
Right.
I think that might have been something that could have really added to this film, is like a subplot that goes along with Rufus being like beloved, and because the military police, like they don't really have any lines, but they're a very big presence in this film, like to really showcase or drive home the fact that this is a secret mission. Like you can't go anywhere on this base without passing one of these guards and showing papers. So like if there was a sub story where like the MPs of the base are like, we can't let them know about this.
You let him run out in the street? What the hell's wrong with you? Yeah.
I have some terrible news. Rufus's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. It spun
There were
in.
no survivors.
There were no survivors.
I've actually been rewatching MASH lately. Thanks, Jack. Spoiler.
Anytime.
We have a rule here, which is if it's
no racism.
Okay, we have two rules here. Which is, if it's from before the year 2000, there's no such thing as spoilers.
Oh, so many people died on that second Death Star.
25 years. I'm sorry. If you need more than 25 years to see something,
yeah,
that's on you.
Yeah. Another ironic thing that I stumbled across, remember the poultry farmer writing the letter angrily as they're flying over his house and rattling the windows?
I was really hoping for a follow-up scene. So like he writes this angry letter. He's like, these guys keep flying over my house and it's messing up my chickens. And like right before that, there's a conversation. He's like, can you guys fly lower? I wanted them to reorder that. So it's like he writes this letter and then Wallace is like, I need you guys to fly lower. And then the next scene is the chicken farmer again, just losing his mind.
It's
like, I sent this letter and now they're like flying even worse.
And also, we're going to need you practice dropping bombs on this particular chicken farmer's house. and using paint right on each bomb. Fuck you.
That was a good kind of continuity thing they had in this movie, though, because he writes in his letters like, my chickens laying their eggs prematurely and not being able to be used is a hindrance to the war effort.
Right.
And when they're eating their breakfast before going to the mission, the person walking around handing out, plates of food is like, are you flying tonight? Okay, you get a egg.
Right.
And then you have one guy, she's like, are you flying tonight? And he's like, no. And she's like, toast is on the fucking table. Like,
yeah. And Gibson and somebody else, one of the other flyers, is like, so if I make a bet, can I have your egg? And you don't, can I have your egg? Absolutely. And I'll get yours if you don't make it back, that sort of thing. But the reason I bring up the poultry farmer, I see him in the credits. He's listed as poultry farmer, right? And the actor's last name, just like Armchair Commanders was mentioned before the fight scene, the actor who portrayed the poultry farmer has my last name, but before it was changed up when it got to the U.S., it's Naismith. So he's a relative, apparently.
Wow.
You should be
Family.
getting royalties from YouTube then.
Yeah.
Exactly. Except for the fact that I'm adopted, so that probably indemnifies me.
Details.
You're legally that family.
Blood
Oh,
is
there you
thick.
go.
Blood is thicker than water.
There you go.
So what are you drinking today, Jack?
I have with me that I'm about to crack. I'm drinking Mountain Lightning and also Ham's beer.
A winning combo that I've ever heard.
Yeah. That's why I keep burping.
Mountain Lightning and Hams.
Yeah, off-brand
What-
Mountain Dew and
Did
Ham's
the
beer.
library not pay you this week? Like,
They never pay me. I'm just a gremlin that works there. But
You're the guy from Office Space that they cut off his paycheck and he just keeps coming.
Stapler. That's my stapler. But God damn it, where was I going with this? Don't get me wrong, I really actually did wanted to get Bellagio wine for when we did Caesar. But I'm lazy as hell.
eh.
I was trying to think of another excuse, but there really is none.
Well, we can do the 1950s Julius Caesar next year.
Oh, I'm sure it's a better movie.
Maybe. Who knows?
Well, I mean, I was reading the reviews for it before I figured out I was reading the wrong reviews. But the reviews for that one look pretty good as opposed to the 70s one, which they kind of crapped out.
So, Tim, I don't know if you caught it, but so at the time we're recording this episode, it's the day after we released our Julius Caesar review.
Oh, okay.
So we just did the Charlton Heston 1970s Julius Caesar.
Okay.
To put it
As
bluntly, it was
as opposed to the
kind of fucking
1950s
boring.
Charlton Heston Julius Caesar. But
He did too?
he played Mark Antony in the 1950s and in the 1970s.
Both same role,
Yes.
2 different movies.
20 years apart.
I wonder
almost.
how many people have done that, played the same role,
James
in the
Earl
same
Jones.
spot 20 years apart.
I kind of want to watch the 50 ones now because Charlton Heston was still like really buff and young looking in the 70s version. So
You get
I
to
don't
see him
know.
have an oily, shirtless massage.
Well, he's also
Yeah.
Spartacus, right? Or is that somebody else?
He was in Ben-Hur.
He's in Ben-Hur. Okay. Who played
Yeah.
Spartacus?
It's a great question. I don't know that off the
I
top of my
played
head.
Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus, damn it.
He was also, which is weird because he did 10 Commandments and was Moses in between the 2 Julius Caesars.
Man, he's just made for classical roles, isn't he?
Yeah. As opposed
Antiquity.
to every, I don't know. That film was it was very flat.
What, Ben-Hur or Spartacus?
No, Julius Caesar
Oh,
from the
Julius
70s.
It was really, goddamn, dude.
I was telling Jack, so Julius Caesar is my favorite Shakespeare play.
Okay.
And the last time I saw this film was literally in high school. So my memory of it, I went into the watching of this film with a little bit of rose-colored glasses. And I was kind of disappointed returning to it. So
That's always disappointing.
yeah, but there's 12 other adaptations we can pull from that I can regain my love of that play. So
There you go. There you go.
what are you drinking today, Tim?
Well, I don't want to get us in trouble with product placement, but I'm working with flavored water today. I've been having
We're not
bad
sponsored,
reaction
so we
to
don't.
normal drink.
We're not sponsored, but we could be.
We
Eh?
could be.
Well, I can
Maybe.
say the name if you want.
By all means,
I
we
am
don't get in trouble
drinking
here.
Propel Fitness Water, grape flavor.
Ooh, Propel.
Oh man, I can feel the money coming in from advertisers.
Normally, like the last episode, I'd be drinking Coca-Cola, but I've been experiencing a little trouble with that since
Uh,
Yeah.
last night. Too much of a good thing.
you know what drink wouldn't give you trouble? The fresh God damn it, the fresh cool taste of Ham's beer.
They're
Speaking
not our
of
sponsor,
beer,
but they could be.
speaking of beer, they used to feed the dog. We saw one instance of it in the movie. They used to feed
Yeah,
the dog beer until he passed out.
god damn. Maybe don't give him the full pint. Puts a full pint of beer in front of him and just walks away.
That reminds me, actually, I got really mad at my dad once uh, because, like, I had went out to. This was when I was still living with my parents. Like, I had just graduated high school, and I went out to go to work, and I came back, and for some reason, my never in my entire lifetime had I seen my dad like party ever. And so it was very jarring for me, never having seen him party, go leave for work, come home, and him and a bunch of his friends are just having a grand old time in the garage of our house. And I'm like, huh,
Disconnect.
yeah, there's a disconnect there. And then I see my dog is passed out in the corner, and I'm like, what the? I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with her? It's like, oh, she had too many vodka gummies. I'm like, but you can't do that.
No. No.
Wow.
I was pissed. Like,
I'd be
How
pissed
old did she
too.
live to be?
oh, she's alive in the next room right now.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Wow.
Jesus.
yeah,
I didn't know dogs could process alcohol.
she turns 14 this year, so
A literal booze hound.
I saw somebody get their ferret drunk one time off of beer, but I did not know dogs could handle beer, much less vodka.
well, handle is a. I wouldn't say she handled it very well, but
Well, she didn't die from it. How's that?
yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
You see those videos online of those uh, raccoons that eat rotten fruit that have fermented and they're just stumbling around.
Hmm.
So today, I do the Lent thing. So my penance for Lent is I'm not doing alcohol. So next best thing is a Taco Bell has started doing this new flavor. So it's Baja Blast, but they add like a pump of vanilla cream to it. So they call it a dirty Baja Blast, and it tastes like an orange creamsicle, which is very fun for me.
Hmm.
So we're not sponsored by Taco Bell
Or
But-
But we
or
could
Propel
be.
or Hams, but we could be. I would get a Taco Bell tattoo, if we're being honest. I'm a big fan.
Run for the border.
Yeah. Oh,
But I feel like this is about the time to mention this, but do you consider this mission a success?
From what I read about it, I mean, it was a success in its implementation, but not in its follow up because they did what they wanted to do, but like you pointed out, they repaired them pretty quickly, the dams.
Yeah, they didn't even bother.
Wallace was kind of on them about, okay, you need to hit it now with high altitude bombing, and they just didn't do it. So I would
Bummer.
say yes on that part, no on the follow through.
And yeah, it did cripple the war effort. That is true. But like you said, they repaired it pretty quick.
I would counter. Here's my thought process on it. If we're looking at it just as original objective, destroy dams to hinder war effort, it's kind of a meh result. But I think there's two big things to take away from this that resulted from the pseudo success of this. Like, yeah, they were able to technically accomplish what they wanted. It didn't have the immediate results that they were hoping for, though. One, this raid occurred pre-Normandy. So this raid is just one of many different operations that continuously harassed the Germans into relocating resources away from France. So did it completely knock out these dams and completely stop steel production? No. Did the Luftwaffe reallocate more air power from France and pulled it back deeper into Germany? Absolutely, which is something we needed for the invasion of Normandy. So I say it's a success in that aspect. The second part I mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast was Wallace did not just create the bouncing bomb. He also created the Grand Slam and the Tallboy bombs, which were some of the biggest bombs of the war up until the atomic bomb was created. Those projects did not get approved until because he proposed those bombs before the bouncing bomb and was told no.
And he mentions it at the beginning of the movie, the earthquake bombs.
Yeah. He does this project and is able to show tactical or technical success. And because of that, that opens the doors for him to do these other bombs, which allows the Allies to effectively attack V1 and V2 rocket sites, which were causing legitimate problems. Additionally, there's one line in this film, it's very easy to miss, but I feel like it in and of itself would make for an amazing movie. But if Peter Jackson does do a Dam Busters movie, I would when I say a Barnes Wallace movie would be really cool, is if we followed all of his projects, like, and did a 3-part act of like Dam Busters, attacking the V1 V2 sites, attacking the Tirpitz, because there is a line in here. It's like, oh, we're attacking dams. I thought we were going to attack the Tirpitz, and it's just a throwaway line.
Yeah.
But it was a Barnes Wallace bomb that destroyed the Tirpitz, which is the sister ship to the Bismarck. And the reason why they couldn't destroy the Tirpitz is because after the Bismarck sank, the Germans sent it up to, I think it was Norway or something, and basically just had it hide out in one of the fjords. And it was basically preventing movement within a certain channel, because even though they weren't putting it out there, the Allies were like, we can't really chance putting shipping through that area, because what if it does come out?
And his stuff was used to blow the roof on the U-boat pins, I think at Brest.
Yeah, there was that too. Like,
yeah.
So did this mission have the outcome they were going for? No, but it opened the door for them to do all these other special operations. So in that sense, I would absolutely say that it was a success.
Yeah, Bomber Harris wasn't too keen on this looking back.
That's Sir operation. Bomber Harris to you?
Sir Bomber Harris. Shut the fuck up.
Order of the British Empire.
Yeah, he wasn't too keen on this, looking back on it after the war. In fact, I think
hindsight's 20/20, but
I think he bluntly called it like a waste of resources and time. But it was a good PR victory and a good propaganda tool, because hey, look, we destroyed these two major things in Germany, when up until this point we've just been getting our shit kicked in on the British Isles.
And also it brought it home to the German public.
Yep.
So and that was a detail that I liked at the beginning of the movie, when the doctor comes to Wallace's home. his wife chastises him, get off those wet shoes. And before he deals with that, he goes and the doctor helps him put up the blackout curtains. And they step outside because they hear aircraft and they talk about the Blitz and the bombing of London and everything. So you see the British public is having to react to it now because of the flooding through the Ruhr Valley. The Germans are the civilians are receiving a kind of a wake-up call.
Mine cabbages.
Mine
cabbages.
My sauerkraut. My beer. How many German pubs died because of this mission?
1,000. But I know this raid killed like 1,000 POWs, mostly Soviet Union.
Yeah.
It also destroyed and damaged a shitload of factories. But maybe he was coping, but Albert Speer said it didn't really set them back that much. It was more of an annoyance to them.
Okay, well,
but take
let's
that with
also
a grain
remember.
of salt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is anybody in high up Nazi command ever going to be realistic about their situation?
Well, I mean, the ones that were killed probably for treason.
Yeah.
The ones saying, "Hey, we fucked up on the Eastern Front. This war is unwinnable." Nope, fuck you, executed.
About the only one that ever seemed to speak his mind was Dönitz, but it's selectively so. He knew when to say it and when not to.
Same with Schindler to a point.
Yeah.
And Rommel.
But, yeah, things didn't really end out well for Rommel, though.
Yeah, none of those three really ended the war in a better spot than they started. But
yeah.
Anyways,
it's probably time we give this a rating. I am open to suggestions, but you mentioned it earlier about our poor chicken farmer. I think that would be a great metric, is 1 to 5 chickens, but
So who goes first?
Jack, you do 1 to 5 chickens.
I'm gonna say 4 chickens, but 1 hatched from a premature egg, so it's really small. So 4.5.
Okay.
All right.
Tim?
Yeah, the racist dog kept this from being a perfect score.
What's racist about Rufus?
There's nothing wrong with Rufus.
I mean, if you speak dog, you'll understand that he's saying some, very questionable things.
Kind of like Chopper in Star Wars and R2. They bleeped every single word they said.
Yeah, just an absolute potty mouth. And I know this is controversial for me to say, but I really do believe that if dogs could talk, they would be super duper racist against other dogs. Like, don't fucking listen to him. He's a Chihuahua. Or what does a Saint Bernard know? Or he's a different breed than us. Let's bark at him incessantly.
Please don't give me another vodka. My dog would say, "Please don't give me another vodka gummy."
And
poor girl.
John's dog is a hopeless drunk.
That's not anxiety. That's just a DT she's got.
But what do you give this, Tim?
My gut reaction is 4 chickens. But if the viewer is going into it looking for a Michael Bay type film, this is not your film. This is definitely a British film. But if you like accuracy, I was really impressed just by little small details that I saw. Like John, when you and I were talking about Greyhound, I talked about the communication repetition. The command is given, then or the information is relayed from sonar, and then the messenger relays it, and then the first officer relays it, and then back down the chain, just to make sure that the command gets through. And I noticed that again here, where check flaps, okay, and they're just going back and forth, checking flaps. So I liked that. I saw, I don't know if y'all noticed or not, the drivers, all of the drivers of the vehicles were female, which is some of what Queen
I did.
Elizabeth was doing during that time. She was
Yeah, she was a
I
mechanic, wasn't
didn't
she?
notice.
Yeah, every single driver I saw. They come up to the gates at like a checkpoint, and the what I found interesting was they got the little bar that normally drops down across the road to this little wooden bar will stop a raging metal vehicle, right? But instead of dropping down vertically, it rotates out of the way, which I've never seen before. To me, that's definitely a British film thing, and maybe that's what they have in Britain versus the vertical ones we have over here. But right beside the gate, you see the little um, steel bar curly cues that hold the barbed wire. I look at old Hollywood World War II movies, and I don't see that. I just see them, you know, they've nailed a wooden stake with the barbed wire on it, but they actually had the wartime curly cues, which just the attention to detail I really liked. So if you're looking for that, I think it's great. The slowness of the film at certain points, with the 3 bombing runs or the slow build up to the mission, they might have been able to speed it up a little bit, but that would be, and the racist dog, or the detractors to keep it from 5
I
chicken.
don't know why they would give Rufus those lines.
I
It's
know,
terrible.
right?
Man,
Right. But I will
bad
say
race.
this for their benefit: the fact that nobody has gone in and just overdubbed that name and put in a different name. They've left the film as it was made, and
They didn't pull a Walt Disney on
they
it.
didn't pull a Walt Disney. They didn't pull a Ted Turner with the colorization, and they didn't do honestly, they didn't do a Lucas and a Spielberg going out and taking away the guns from the FBI agents chasing ET and putting in gigantic cell phones. They left the film as a picture of what the world was like back then. And to that, I say kudos to them for that.
Yeah,
Jackson remakes the movie, there's no need to put it in. But going back and looking at the original film, and it's
It's
a
kind
time capsule of when it was made,
yeah,
good.
it's kind of funny to me that you mentioned the Spielberg replacing ET agents with like giant walkie talkies.
Mm-hmm.
South Park did an episode making fun of that.
Yeah.
And I had this experience where when I did my senior photos in high school, I graduated high school in 2013. And, senior photos like today were a bit different, long ago, they used to just be the same as everybody else's photos. Uh, at least where we were at, like when you did your senior photos, you could do whatever you wanted. Like, and it was actually expected that you just went to like a photographer and then you submitted one to the yearbook. Um, and me being a smartass and me also being a nerd, I decided to dress up as Captain America for my senior photo.
Okay.
And I submitted it, and like the next day, I get talked to by a teacher like, "We cannot have you holding a gun in your yearbook photo." And they're like, "I can Photoshop the gun out," and I'm like, "I'm going to look stupid because I'm literally like I'm holding a Captain America shield and I have a 45 in my other hand, like very stereotypical pose. Like if you Photoshop that out, it's just going to look like I'm holding like a finger gun, basically." So I told him, I'm like, You go ahead and Photoshop in a walkie-talkie into my hand. So my senior photo got Steven Spielberg.
I want to see that photo.
I'll have to find
I
it.
heard later that he regretted doing it, and he's gone back and like put the original back out. But I haven't watched it on Disney Plus yet to see if that's the case. But apparently, he said I did it because I had kids, and then I began saying, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this," and then he said, "Now I regret it." So,
so for my rating, I really like this movie. I would absolutely watch it again. It even though it does get slow in some parts, it does have a way of keeping like this is one of those films that it even in the slow parts it kept my attention. Like I think a very good metric of a film is whether or not I pull my phone out and start scrolling.
okay.
I never the only time I pulled my phone out was during the scene with Rufus dying, and I'm like, okay, this seems like foreshadowing. Other than that, there was not like a this is a nothing scene. I'm going to, check my email real quick. Which that might just be more of a commentary on modern society and the addiction to technology. But that being said, I didn't pull my phone out of boredom during this film. So I would give this 4 chickens, and the 5th chicken got attacked by Rufus. So 4.25.
4.25. So 4.5,
Yeah.
4.25, and 4. Okay.
Jack, what does Rotten Tomatoes give this?
I'm glad you asked because the tomometer is 100%
Oh,
and the popcorn meter is 84%.
You know what? I'm not even mad about that.
Yeah. I think it's a very apt rating.
I think this is like the 3rd film we've ever had with 100% rating.
But you know what this means? It's that Rotten Tomatoes is full of racists, and they gave
That
it
is what it
100%
means.
because of the dog name. Clearly.
Tim, do you know what? I don't remember all 3, but there's one 100% film that we've reviewed that has always stuck out to me, and it blows my mind.
What's that?
Sands of Iwo Jima is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Sands of Iwo Jima.
Which, don't get me wrong, good movie.
Yeah.
An important film in cinema history. Not really sure it's a 100% film though.
Yeah.
But
I would kind of, and I haven't seen it except in parts. There's a lot of these old films that I've only seen in parts, like on Saturday afternoons growing up. I would kind of expect from the prior generation, The Great Escape would be 100%er.
We've done that.
We have done that. I don't remember what Rotten Tomatoes was, but I don't think it was 100.
Yeah. Or
I know
the Sand Pebbles. People just rave about the Sand Pebbles. Sand Pebbles is a marathon.
I don't know. I am not upset at Rotten Tomatoes for giving this 100% though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have no regrets about buying it. So
it's something you can proudly put on your DVD shelf.
Exactly. It is. The only gripe I have is that the cover has, I don't remember which one this, I think this is, for whatever reason, I want to say this is actually Michael Redgrave who played the scientist wearing a flight suit, and it should be the other way around. It should be Richard Todd, but he's in front of the Lancaster bomber, and Rufus is nowhere to be seen, and that's my gripe.
This must have been after the whole car incident.
Yeah, actually, I read they did bury him, and he had a gravestone, and they only just recently in 2020 took down the gravestone.
Wait, they took down the dog's gravestone?
Down the dog's gravestone. So
Hold up, I'm looking this up.
Whew.
He has his own Wikipedia page.
mm-hmm.
He was vital to the war effort.
it's vital for the war effort.
Clearly.
Oh, they did take down his grave in July of 20.
Is there a picture of him on his Wikipedia page?
Of the dog. It's yes.
Really?
Let me hold up.
Wow.
I can do a screen share.
Oh,
Did they give Rufus a Victoria Cross?
I don't see how, unless it was from a prior mission. Maybe it was one of theirs and they just gave it to him.
Yeah.
Because I got the impression that Gibson was done, and this was like, hey, before, because you got so many missions and then you're done. I think this was like an extra mission. Did I hear that right at the beginning of the movie?
Maybe.
So maybe it was.
See, there was. Here's his gravestone.
Wait, so his name wasn't Rufus?
Jack.
Oh, let's talk for a moment about the freaking driver of the car who ran over somebody's dog and kept
It didn't
going.
stop.
Oh, what a jerk!
What an ass!
Oh, you know what? I'm glad Rufus has a Wikipedia page.
So yeah,
I wonder what that asshole thought when he saw his car depicted in the movie and running away after hitting and killing that dog and not manning up to it.
Just sweating bullets in the theater.
Dog killer.
It's just wow. Who would do that?
I ran over a dog by an RAF base a while ago.
And if I recall correctly, it too was racist. but also from that same...
I was doing it a public service. I took out a racist.
All right, fine. I admit it. I'm a German spy, but I also hate racism. But
now here's the irony: he was a black lab.
I think that's why they named it.
Yeah.
You know what? Not going there. But I too was reading his Wikipedia page, and apparently some edited versions of this movie he's named Trigger.
Yeah.
Which, Rufus is right there. Why don't they go with that?
I know, right?
I don't think they should have removed his gravestone. I think they should have added an additional plaque explaining.
Like, guys, we know. Guys, we know. The guys that fought for our country were racists, so not all of them were angels.
Like, I know I was advocating for a name change in this movie, but that's for the presentation of popular media, not an actual marker.
But Jack, you just mentioned, the guys that fought for our country, some of them were racist, right?
Yeah.
And I've actually encountered that because what we're doing with the ship right now in dry dock, we are going back to a space that was changed in the Cold War. And Kid's target date is August 14th, 1945. So we try to make everything better World War II. And the space that was changed during the Cold War was the living quarters for the black crew members because everything was segregated back then. And we're putting it back that way so we can talk about that aspect of service. I actually had the son of a Navy veteran, not anybody affiliated with Kid, but son of a Navy veteran actually get angry with me online about that, talking about we're just stirring the pot and everything by still talking about that. And what it really seemed to be was the son was worried about his father. My dad served during that period, so did that mean he was a racist? It was an interesting conversation, and he finally understood that we weren't trying to run anybody down. We were just trying to talk about the world as it was then. But there are family members out there that are very protective of their family,
Yeah.
looking at them, as you said, John, through rose-colored glasses. So
I think it's a discussion that people have a hard time having.
yeah,
There's a YouTuber who I like. His channel's called Atun Shay. It's spelled in a weird way, but his one of his bigger series is called Checkmate Lincolnites, where he addresses basically the lost cause narrative associated with the Civil War.
right,
And he said something that was very eloquent and succinct, but basically what it equated to is your grandparents or your great grandparents or your ancestors would, if you met them today, would have been people that you would have aligned with very little with.
right,
Some of the things that they believed in and practiced were absolutely abhorrent, but were normal for that time. That doesn't excuse the actions, but you can still have a person who was a good person and did bad things or believed bad things. That doesn't, acknowledging that they had a fault or had something that isn't good by today's standards does not necessarily dismiss them.
right,
Like, if if you're the guy, if your ancestor is General Lee, okay, your ancestor was a bad dude. He waged a rebellion for the sake of slavery. If your great 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 grandpappy was General Sherman, congratulations, you also are related to a bad guy, but the bad things he did was for the sake of ending slavery. So
right.
you got to do the balancing act.
You got to know context. You got to know the context.
Is burning the entire South to the ground a good thing? No. Did it help end slavery, which is a good thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just have to be able to be willing to have those discussions, but completely being, like in the instance of your ship being like, oh, you doing this is just going to purposely like make people angry and like bring up things that don't need to be brought up. Like that, no, that's not the case. Like, you need to talk about how things actually were then, and that's how you recognize how we've made progress.
Right. And isn't it awesome that a film that was made 70 years ago? Is it 70 years ago now? I suck at math.
Yeah, 70.
Yeah, 70 years ago, just the name of a dog and how you could name a dog that in that world, that's sparking a conversation here. And in the greater world with Peter Jackson's film.
Man, imagine 70 years from now and Tim is a horrifically racist, outdated term. So somebody has to go and censor this podcast. And
I was going to say,
our
podcast is going to get censored because Rufus becomes a derogatory slur.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, being racist is wrong. Being wrong is for Rufuses.
Oh God. Please don't cancel us. We're so close. We're so close to 100 episode, guys. We've been trying to talk about how saying certain words aren't okay anymore.
Right. That's right. And we're not saying them. We haven't said it at one point.
We don't want to lose we don't want to lose our sponsorships
that we don't have yet.
Potential.
Talk about Propel. We never said those words.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim, it has been a blast having you on.
It's fun. I'm glad I got to not meet Jack because I can't see him at all.
Yeah, sorry, I don't like having my camera on for this.
That's okay. I got to talk to you, so that's cool.
Anytime.
I'm surprised we never mentioned it, but did you know that you two are fellow amputees?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm missing the
Call me sometime.
two. Yeah, I noticed that during our podcast, but I didn't say anything. I'm missing the two little toes on my right foot from a work accident when I was 5. I grew up on the ranch.
Oh, I grew up on a ranch.
Is that how you lost yours?
No, I blew mine off with high explosives at the museum.
I see. I didn't know you guys.
That was back when museums used to be cool.
That's
I was
right.
gonna say, like, that's a hell of an exhibit. I didn't know
Yeah,
they.
if you go to USSKid, well, not USSKid.com. If you go to the kids' YouTube site, History X had me on to talk about my accident, and you can find it. Don't go to History X to watch it because Ken doesn't need the viewership. Go to the kids' YouTube channel, and watch it there. Because it's my accident, so I should get the viewership, right?
Oh,
You
okay.
you
I was gonna
should.
say, I thought History X had a unveiling moment like a lot of YouTubers do.
You know what's hilarious?
They're
is,
actually coming down in 2 weeks. He and Shane both are going to be down here.
For all of our talk about, racism in our world today, when when I go to try and find something specifically from his page, I type in History X in the search bar like you should when you're looking for a specific channel.
Yeah.
Except for whatever reason, YouTube has, even though he has a very solid viewership, he's like 150,000 followers now, maybe 200 almost.
I forget. It's in the 100,000 range, I want to say.
Yeah, he's up there. So not a small channel by any means.
No.
You type in History X into YouTube, his channel doesn't pop up. What pops up are clips from the movie American History X, which is about neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And he has no hair. So.
It's all coming together.
All coming in. We know about you, Ken.
We're on to you.
Yeah.
No, I'll be sure to tell Ken that you said he doesn't need the viewership. So.
I'll tell him when he comes down here. I have to say, Ken is one of the most generous folks I know. He has really tutored me and my compatriot at the museum, Molly Bollinger, who is the genius behind the camera. I'm the liability in front of the camera, but he basically said, "Here's my email, here's my cell phone, anything I can do to help you guys." He's done the same thing for Shane at Buffalo, and I was with the Louisiana Association of Museums up until September before last, because I saw a dry dock coming. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to fulfill my duty, so I stepped down. But they do stuff like in-service type training. What do they call it? Not adult education, but professional development for museum folks. And so I hooked Ken up with Lamb, and he's going to be doing a thing to tell other museums, how can you bootstrap your YouTube channel up? So he's a fabulous person. I really enjoy hanging out with him and getting on a live stream with him every once in a while when he can tolerate me.
So speaking of YouTube, if there's any social media pages, YouTube accounts that you'd like to push, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. USSKid.com is our website, and you can find us as USS Kid Veterans Museum on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter or X, or whatever you choose to call it these days. And on YouTube, we are dropping videos about the ship being in dry dock about every week, on the average, one every week. And we just launched this past week a TikTok page. So you can find us on TikTok, but there won't be a lot of content on there yet. And you probably won't see me because I don't understand TikTok. So that's all Molly and a new addition to our team, Omar. They're going to be running the TikTok side of things. So,
you know what? We also have we have everything basically.
Yeah.
But you can do what's called reposting. So essentially, you don't need to generate your own content. You just repost other people's stuff. So feel free to steal any of our items.
Oh, I promote you guys as well. So, I've noticed you guys promoting us, and so I really appreciate that cross pollination there.
Okay, so go and give the USS Kid a follow. Jack, do you have anything else?
I donut.
All right. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. The stars do matter. If you want additional content from us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all those good places, Discord. Until next week, I've been John.
And I'm Jack.
Tim, thank you again so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
We will catch you all later.
Bye.